Hi, everybody. Okay, let's do it together. Hi, everybody. Hi. That's much, much better. All right. All right. Well, welcome to AZ Wordsmith's presentation of Stories That Matter, or Stories Matter, or Your Stories Matter, or all of the above, but enjoy. A couple of quick housekeeping notes before we get going with the program. I'm the only one that gets to read, by the way. No one else gets to read. So you guys that are going to tell stories. Okay. So anyways, general announcement stuff. The bar is open in the back. Liz is at the bar. For those of you who have not been here before, often what the Elks Performing Arts Center does is donate space for programs for the arts. We are one of those beneficiaries, so any money they make today will be at the bar, and that money goes in turn out to the community through the programs that they sponsor. Music buying programs, instrument buying programs, uniforms, scholarships, all kinds of different programs that occur that happen here at the Elks Performing Arts Center. So if you choose, please imbibe safely, often. And if you do, then you'll probably want to know where the restrooms are. If you go out this door and turn a right, they're behind that half wall there, and that's where the restrooms are. So feel free to get up and down as you see fit. If there is an emergency in the building, the elevator will stop working. It's programmed to stop and hold itself for the fire, police, whoever the responders, the first responders are. So to get out of the building, if there is an emergency and these things are making God's own noise, there's a fire escape right here. There behind you, and there is a door to the left of the elevator, and then in the Sundance room across the hall, there is another fire escape in the back of the building. So that's all of that stuff. So, okay, we're good. Okay, so anyways, like I said, welcome to Stories That Matter. This is our second program that we've had, and thank you very much. How many have been here before for anything? Okay, so a good amount of you, probably about half, have been here before. So welcome and thank you for coming. Liz back there at the bar is the program manager for the Elks. And so anything that goes on here usually comes through her and her assistant, Sarah. But right now we're here to talk about stories. And stories are kind of one of the oldest forms of communication that is out there. And we're here to kind of celebrate and reinvigorate that. Had been kicking this idea around, the group of us, for 6 months or a year or something like that, and finally just bit the bullet and made it happen. And the response, well, it's very gratifying to have you all here like this. So thank you. Communication and sharing and, education, friendship, togetherness, all things that happen when you're telling stories. And we hope that you have an opportunity to enjoy these stories that you're about to hear. Some are very funny, some are very tender, some are funny and tender, some are odd, but I hope you'll enjoy them regardless. Our goal, Stories That Matter, as part of AZ Wordsmith, is to just promote the art of storytelling. So that's what we're here to do today. So I'm going to shut up and get the ball rolling. The format today will be like this. We'll have 3 storytellers at the beginning, and then we'll have a short intermission of about 10 or 15 minutes. And after that, we will have some wild cards from those of you who have chosen to put your name in the hat, who get to come up here cold turkey and tell their stories. So we have not heard these. We have no idea what they are. So it could be very, very interesting. And after that, we will have our last 2 regular storytellers up here for the evening. So our very first storyteller is Melissa Fryrear. And Melissa, come on up, Melissa. Fryrear. That's what I said. Yes, that's what I wrote, but it's not what I said.
I know. You don't want to leave the rear on.
Fryrear, yes. Melissa is a recent transplant from the southeast, where she left the mosquitoes and humidity gratefully behind. Three of her fun favorite things, sunshine, chocolate, and kindness, not necessarily in that order. And Melissa's story is about family in whatever form that takes. And now, I give you Melissa.
Thank you, Stephen.
Okay.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. As Stephen said, my name is Melissa Fryrear. There is a rear on the end of that. 5th grade was a little bumpy. And I'm going to tell you a story about family. Let's go back to the 1950s. And this cute 18-year-old young woman met this handsome 18-year-old young man who had just been honorably discharged from the Navy. Within 6 months of meeting one another, they fell in love and became husband and wife. Within 6 months of getting married, though, learned that the young woman had cancer. Going in and out, maybe? I did not break it.
Technical difficulty?
I'd do the river dance if I knew it, but... So they got married. Within 6 months of getting married, they learned that the young woman had cancer. And the doctors told them to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. Thankfully, that young woman survived that battle with cancer. But the treatment that they gave her to eradicate the cancer damaged her reproductive organs. And as a result, they weren't able to have children naturally. But after 5 years of good health, they were given the okay to begin the adoption process. That man and woman are my mom and dad. And I will be forever grateful that I'm the second of 2 children that they adopted in the 60s. Now, I was born in Western Kentucky, that's the twang, but I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and really up till 6 years ago, my parents still lived in the house that I grew up in. And in Louisville, I swam on the neighborhood swim team, and I played the handbells in the children's church choir, much to the irritation of the pastor's wife, I might add. And at that time in puberty, I never, ever, ever thought that I would survive puberty. I did, obviously. I always knew that I was adopted. My parents had a book from the 50s titled The Chosen Baby that they read to me and my older brother, who is also adopted but not biologically related. And this book explained to young minds what adoption was. And it was full of these mid-century drawings of a father and mother who, to me, looked like Ward and June Cleaver from the show Leave It to Beaver. As an adoptee, and if any of you are adoptees, you naturally have questions surrounding the circumstances of your adoption. All my parents were ever able to tell me was that my biological mother was not married when she got pregnant with me, and she already had 2 children. But adoption for me, it wasn't something that I thought about all the time, and I never had this strong desire to search for my birth family. My mom and dad were my mom and dad. I never referred to them as my adoptive parents. They were my mom and dad, my only mom and dad. That older brother, though, I could refer to him in more ways than adopted, but that's probably another story for another day. And it might involve a beanbag chair from the 70s, but again, another story. Let's fast forward now to 2003. I accepted a job out of state, and I pack up the proverbial horse and buggy, and I move from Kentucky to Colorado. Well, with that brand new chapter in my life and these pages that had not yet been written, I decided to do anything that crossed my path that wasn't illegal. Surprisingly, my adoption came to the forefront. So I decided to contact the Kentucky Cabinet of Families, requesting any information about my adoption. A few months go by, I get a letter in the mail, and I open it up, and basic formalities, but after those basic formalities, the only information that was included were these general facts about my biological parents. Their height, their weight, the color of their hair, the color of their eyes. But the one thing I learned that shocked me was their age. I always assumed they were teenagers, fooling around in the back of a Chevy or Ford. They weren't teenagers. They were in their mid-30s when they got pregnant with me. They were the same age as my parents. Well, that answered a few questions, but there were many more questions still unanswered. So I contacted the Kentucky Cabinet of Families again, and this time I requested identifying information. Number of months go by, I receive this manila packet in the mail. I open it up, I slide out a stack of legal-size papers that had been folded in half, and on top was a form letter. And I glance at that form letter, and my eyes immediately fall on the word rejected. So my request for identifying information had been rejected. But that word rejected cut deep. Even though I'd been adopted, raised, loved by the two most wonderful parents, there was still a bruise of rejection on my heart. So I didn't even look at the stack of papers. I slid them back into the manila envelope, sealed it up, and stuffed it in the back of a desk drawer. I didn't know it at the time, but that stack of papers was a photocopy of the court transcript for my adoption proceedings. Papers in retrospect that probably I never should have received. Fast forward 15 years. I hook up that horse and buggy again. I head a little further west, and now I'm living in beautiful Prescott. And a dear friend named Marie now enters the story. Dun, dun, dun. Well, Marie, among various careers, at one time in her life had dabbled in private investigation. We all need a friend like that. Well, Marie had a bent toward wanting to know everything. So one day she asked me if she could read through my adoption paperwork. And I said, well, yeah, sure. So she's reading through it, and she looks at me at one point, and she says, did you know that your name is in this paperwork? And I said, well, of course. I said, Melissa Fryrear. I said, hello. She looked at me. She said, no, your birth name is in this transcript. Another factoid about Marie is that she loved the show on the Learning Channel called Long Lost Family. Okay, I have some head nods. Some of you know what it's about. If you are not familiar with the show, you can probably guess by the name. Long Lost Family. That it's about reconnecting adoptees with their birth families. Just about every week, Marie would tell me about an organization they promoted in each show. The organization was called adoptiondatabase.org. A few more months go by. And I don't know what triggered it, but one afternoon I pull up adoptiondatabase.org on my laptop. It takes me maybe 15 minutes to fill in the information that I did know about my adoption. And after paying only a $10 processing fee, I click that submit button. But because I was perimenopausal at the time, within a week, I completely forgot about what I had done. I never thought about it again until almost a year later, to the day. Now it's 2019. I turn my cell phone off at night, and I check it one morning, and I see that a message has been left from a caller in New Jersey. I click the play button, and a woman says, "Melissa, this is Joanne from adoptiondatabase.org. We have significant information about your birth family. If you'd like to know more, feel free to give me a call at your convenience." You think I'm shaking now. My hand was shaking so badly, I pressed that callback button, and Joanne answers the phone. And she proceeds to tell me that my birth mother is alive. She's in her mid-80s, and she's living in the same city in Western Kentucky where I was born. Her name is Wanda. Actually, Wandaline, but that seems so Kentucky-ish. Wandaline. But she goes by Wanda. Joanne then tells me that she can give me her number, or she can call her on my behalf. Why don't you call her? Joanne asks if I'll be at the same number I've called from. Oh yeah, I'll be at the same number. Within 5 minutes, Joanne calls back, and she tells me that a man answered the phone who said that Wanda couldn't talk. But because Joanne didn't know who the man is, she just politely ended the call. Joanne then asks, "Would you like me to call your sister Patty?" Patty? You have a sister living in the same city as Wanda. No, maybe you better call her. You going to be at the same number? Oh, yeah. I'm going to be at the same number. Within 5 minutes, Joanne calls back. "Melissa, on a 3-way call. I'd like to introduce you to your sister, Patty. Patty, this is your sister, Melissa." That was a surreal 2-hour-long conversation. 12 years old at the time, Patty had no idea that her mother had been pregnant and gave birth to a 3rd baby. She also had no idea who my biological father might be. You see, Wanda had been married to Patty's dad, but they divorced. And then a few years later, Wanda married Jimmy. that was the man who answered the phone when Joanne called. But there was about a 3-year window span of time that has left a very significant question unanswered. Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? I met Patty face to face 3 weeks later. At that time, I was flying back to Kentucky about every month to visit my dad, who now was in assisted living with dementia. And one day I drove to Western Kentucky, and Patty and I sat down and had lunch at Cracker Barrel, of course. It's Kentucky, remember. Patty was wonderful. At one point during lunch, she hands me a picture, and it's a woman in her early 30s. And when I looked at that picture, I gasped out loud, because looking at it, I saw myself reflected back. I had never looked like anyone in my entire life until I saw that picture of Wanda. You may be wondering if I've met Wanda, my birth mother. She is still alive. Now she's 91. But like my dad, she also has dementia. And so Patty and I agreed that it would be best not to tell her who I am. And I have a perfect peace about that, because most of the questions surrounding my adoption have been answered. Through this journey, spanning obviously many years, there's something else that happened, unimaginable. I never could have foreseen this. But the love that I have for my parents grew even more. I couldn't imagine loving them anymore, but I do. 2 weeks ago, I was in Louisville again to see my dad. And on Thursday, I drove to Western Kentucky, and Patty and I enjoyed a Thanksgiving lunch at Cracker Barrel, of course. And I'll close with this thought. Sometimes some babies are born twice. They're born the first time in their mommy's tummy, and they're born a second time in their parents' hearts. Happy Thanksgiving.
Wow, that was great. It's a true story. Yeah, all of the stories you're hearing, by the way, are true stories. They have to be true. There's no nonfiction or fiction, no fiction going on here. So, anyways, okay. Now that we're all warmed up, our next storyteller, Janet Hopkins. Come on up, Janet. Would you like to keep the prize, or see what's behind the curtain where Liz is talking? Okay. Anyways, Janet is a longtime Prescott resident, had moved here in 1986. Her goal in life at that time was to become a cowgirl. And you can see how well that's worked out. She actually had to get a job and go to work and do something, I don't want to say that working cowpoke is not real work, but not traditional work, I guess, in the way I grew up. Anyways, she's now retired and spends most of the time writing her own stories. And we're about to hear one short one, I think. Yeah. Janet's story is about strange holiday visitations.
So I call this story my unforgettable holiday story. I actually have 3 of those, but I'm only going to tell you one. So imagine yourself back in 1969. It's Christmas Eve. I'm home from school, from college, on winter break, and so is my older brother. And my mom is in the kitchen. She's clattering around making a Christmas Eve dinner. And my dad, who loves photography, is downstairs developing film from the pictures he took of all of us the day before in his darkroom. My brother and I, Douglas and myself, are in the living room with our 2 younger siblings, and we're regaling them with our fantastic college stories. So my brother starts off. I wasn't really so sure I should tell the stories, but my brother started off, and he's talking about being the editor of the underground newspaper, which he explained what that was, at UCSD, and that he'd gone to an anti-war protest, which we were all like, whoa, we'd seen those on TV. And yeah, we were out in the country. And so, well, he told his story, so I thought, well, I'll tell mine. And I started to tell it, and I'll give you a little explanation. At lunch, my mother, who was a 6th grade teacher, had passed around a plastic marijuana leaf that she got from this conference she had gone to just the week before, where they explained about drugs. And so, and of course, my mother is like as naive as the driven snow. So she was eager to explain to us, because we were possibly the people who would be in trouble with this stuff, what this was, what this marijuana was, and then we each got to look at the leaf. And of course, my older brother and I are snickering a little bit, because we knew what it was. And so the younger kids had this exposure to marijuana at lunchtime. So I told my story. I was in a very conservative college, and somebody had given me marijuana seeds because I like to grow things. So I had started a marijuana plant, 1969, remember, in a little pot on my dorm room window. And it had gotten, pretty big. And I brought it home because I didn't want it to die while I was on Christmas break. And my bedroom was down in the basement, and it was a second floor kind of. And so my parents didn't go down there much. So it was in the window, and it was doing fine. And so I just told my story, and there was this loud knock at the door. And my mother yells, "Get the door, you kids." And everybody looked at me, of course. So I went to the door and opened it, and there's 2 policemen at the door. So they said, "We'd like to speak to your father," or "We'd like to speak to Cleveland Hopkins," which was my father. Now, my father is this very conservative civil servant who'd worked in the defense system all his life, had top security clearance, worked in the rad lab at MIT, worked on the atomic bomb. I mean, this guy was, pretty substantial, straight, modest. Anyhow, so I went white when they said they wanted to talk to my father, because I had this image already. They'd seen, somebody had called about my marijuana plant. And they were going to talk to my dad first, so I was dead. So I asked them if they wanted to come in. They said no, which didn't seem like a good sign. So I shut the door, and I looked at my brother, and I said, "Cops." And so he stashes the newspaper he brought. He sat on it. And I and I went to the top of the stairs and I yelled down to my dad that somebody wanted to talk to him. So he comes upstairs, taking off his plastic apron and straightening his tie, which he always had on. And he goes to the door, and we hear just a little bit of conversation. We're still sitting in the living room, and the door's right there. And they ask him outside, and he shuts the door. So my brother and I, of course, go to the door to see if we can hear what's going on, because both of us are like scared witless. And we couldn't hear a thing, just, murmuring voices. And so my dad finally comes back in. Now it's Christmas, it's Maryland outside of Washington, D.C., and it's really cold. So he comes back in to get his jacket, and he tells my mom that the police want him to go to the police station in Baltimore, which is 2 hours away. And so, why? And he said, I don't know why. They wouldn't tell me. So he gets his jacket and heads out the door and leaves for Baltimore. He's there 6 hours. We don't know why he's there. He doesn't know why he's there, or at least he didn't. So he called 6 hours later and asked my mom to come pick him up. And so she left and, drove the 2 hours, picked him up, and came home. Of course, our dinner's now in the oven. We haven't had any dinner. And we're just on, we're just so nervous about this. So he gets home and he says, well, he spent the 6 hours on the phone with his boss, which was not really a pleasant event, having to verify where he was on all these different dates over the past 3 years. And which he did, and he still didn't know why he was there. And towards the end of this time, one of the police officers came back in and said, we can stop all this. It actually is another person by the same name. They figured this out. So what had happened was there was another Cleveland Hopkins in Baltimore who had racked up lots of tickets and lots of no-shows for court over about 5 years. They had started investigating him because he'd finally, I guess, piled up enough to get a felony. And but the interesting part of the story was that he was black. My dad was as white as I am. So, but that was 1969 Baltimore. So my brother and I were so relieved that we were not going to be arrested and put in jail for drugs or for underground magazines or whatever, and we eventually had our Christmas Eve dinner.
Okay, I don't know whether it's a thing, but when I was in college at UMass, ... in the trash can with a light desk light over it. It's kind of how it is. So let's see. Okay, last storyteller before the break is Mallory Gish. Mallory, come on up here. Come on. So Mallory is lived in Prescott for about 4 years. You doing anything behind me?
Yes.
Okay. And has moved here from California. And in California, for 33 years, she was with Los Angeles Unified School District. Thank you. Los Angeles Unified School District in the transportation department as a supervisor, and she supervised the school buses, which is a lot of work. Yeah. And her story is drawn from that experience and how being observant can really make a difference. Mallory.
everyone. It's Mallory here. And I'm going to pull away from the mic because I have a voice that I can project really loud. My story is about being interrogated by the FBI through my work. But I wanted to give you 3 personality traits that my mom had written in my baby book. And in my baby book, I read, Mallory is very nosy. And I said, when I read that, I said, Mallory's nosy? I was like, I'm curious and observant. Then the other thing said, Mallory is loud. And all my life, my mom said, you're loud, Mallory, you're loud. And I said, Mom, someday my voice is an emergency voice. It's going to come to play. And the other trait is my mom said, I'm very bossy. And I said, well, I take charge. You put me in charge of my siblings, so what do you think? But anyway, I had that trait. She saw me bossing my older brother around when I was little. Anyway, so I'm going to take you to a career change. And I was in the medical field, and then I decided I wanted to be a school bus driver. So I got hired with LA Unified School District, and I quickly learned, even though I loved it, driving kids, I had a blast on that job, but I quickly learned I can't stay that place in a part-time job and have any kind of retirement. So I went into supervision, and lo and behold, who would have known that 9/11 would happen? And after that, it changed the whole course of all the documentation LA Unified did. I mean, like, serious documentation. Like, not just like everything you did, they documented it in your personnel file. So we went through some training, the same training every year, and we're like, doing this again? Okay, so one of the training was live shooter. Another one was on observing a terrorist, seeing if you can, if you see something like that. The other one was evacuating a school. The other one was like evacuating a bus. So we went through those scenarios all the time, and everything was documented in our file, personnel file. So I got transferred all over as an experience because LA Unified believes in change causes you to grow. So I landed in the hardest area like 5 years before I was ready to retire, and it was in Woodland Hills. It was the biggest area for transportation that they had in the whole district. It was the furthest north and furthest west of California in LA County area where LA Unified was run. So I had 3 high schools, 3 middle schools, and all the elementary in that area. So I get this one school, and it's a pain in the rear. And it requires me to be in the loading zone every PM. Every PM I had to go to this loading zone. And we're supposed to go to our loading zones, visit our loading zones all the time. So the loading zone was a street of 20 buses lined up, and there were 10 buses lined up here. And in the very front of the school, we had 3 buses, which were special needs buses. So all the drivers would get to the school. They were required to be there 30 minutes ahead of time before school let out. But most of them got there an hour before. So I would go an hour before to the school location, and I'd park across the street, not to be in the loading zone. And, I would walk the loading zones, talking drivers if there's problems. So anyway, this one day, I go there, and here's this gentleman. And what caught my eye was he was in an athletic wear, but he had this groin cover. It was bright red that you would use to protect yourself in like boxing, right? Okay, so I'm like, and it's bright red, and red is my favorite color, so I'm like, okay, like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, he's not in a ring at an athletic where they're sparring. Why is he wearing this on the outside in the school loading zone and kids are going to be coming out? So I'm thinking and plus he has a video camera. So I go to this gentleman and I said, excuse me, I go, who authorized you to videotape in the school loading zone? And he says, well, I work here. I said, you work here? He goes, I volunteer in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm like, okay. I called the school. I said, this gentleman says that he volunteers after school of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And they say, no, he does last period. And I said, did you authorize him to film in the loading zone? And they said, no. So I was like, nobody authorized you to film, so I need to see your ID. And every time I asked him, I got louder and louder, emergency voice. And I said, I need your ID. I need your ID. And I said it like 3 times to him. And then one of my drivers comes up and distracts me for like maybe 4 seconds. So when I turned back around, the guy was gone. I went down the street where the 20 buses were, and the 10 buses, I'm looking for the red groin thing. I'm looking for this groin thing because it's bright red, and you see it. And so I didn't see him anywhere. It was like he disappeared. I was like, that's weird. So prior to this school year that just started, I'm telling you about, we had to go to an emergency meeting because Homeland Security wanted to talk to us. And part of the Homeland Security thing is that they said they want to hurt us where our heart is. They want to hurt like a bus with explosives at a school zone. Who would think to see a bus parked at a school zone that it would be odd? Nobody would think that, right? So, I'm thinking, and they said if something makes you look twice, pay attention. So I'm thinking about this meeting that we had prior to me running into this guy in my loading zone. I'm thinking, man, this guy got my attention more than once. So a week goes by past me running into this guy filming, okay? And I go to the loading zone. I'm parked across the street, and there is this gentleman, and I'm thinking, this is the same guy. This is the same guy, same height, same weight. I could see it, but he's dressed in casual dress, so he wasn't wearing the groin cover, red, bright red. He wasn't wearing that. So I was like, and I saw him going to bus, and I was like, so I went up to one of the drivers. I said, what is he talking to? They said, oh, he's asking us how to buy a school bus. Red flag. I said, he can get that on the internet. He can call the bus company if he wants to buy a used. I said, so I went down to where he was in the other loading zone, and I said, excuse me, sir, you cannot talk to these drivers about buying a school bus when you're not authorized to talk to them. And all of that information you can get on your own without talking to anyone here. And no one authorized you to talk to them. And I want your ID. I said, I want your ID. I want to see your ID, and I'm following him. Now, my voice is loud. All the drivers come out of their buses, and they're watching me. Because Mallory, Miss Gish, is loud. And I'm saying, I want to see your ID. I want to see your ID. Well, he proceeds to cross the street. All my drivers are on the curb watching me as I'm following him. I need to see your ID. Well, he crosses by where my van is. Then he crosses the other street, and he walks down to his vehicle. It's a square, like Chevrolet van, those old ones. It was plum color, metallic, and he gets in the car, so I start taking pictures. I'm taking pictures of his van, and I'm taking pictures of the license plate. And then all of a sudden, all the drivers go, Miss Gish! Get out of the road, he's gonna run you over. And he's flooring it at me, and I jump out of the way, and he peels out really fast. And I'm like, they're like, Miss Gish, are you okay? are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. But inside, I was real jittery. So I called LA Unified Dispatch. They filled out a report. They told me, call LA District Police. So I called the LA District Police. They told me to call the FBI. I was like, oh my gosh, 3 hoops I'm jumping through. So I called the 1-800 number, and it's an automated voice. And I'm like, well, I don't have a computer here, so I got to go back to the office, and they tell you to fill. So I just did a real brief description of the 2 weeks that I had with this guy. And I gave him the little bit of information I had. So a week goes by, I didn't think anything of it, and all of a sudden I get a call. Miss Gish, you need to come to the director's office. The FBI wants to talk to you. I'm like, uh-oh, here goes my knee starting to shake. I'm like, uh-oh. You haven't done anything, Mallory. You had to be FBI checked before you can become a bus driver. They check your whole background. Anyway, so I went there, and we were in a private room, and he was wanting the detail of everything. So I gave it all to him, all the stuff I shared with you. And so I said, so how was I on it? And he said, oh, you hit the head on the nail. You had his weight. You had his height. I was like, really? He goes, you were right on. I said, what about the license plate? He goes, well, we went to the registered address to the vehicle, and we went in the building. It was an empty warehouse. I was like, oh, wow. I said, so was he on the watch list? And he said, yeah, he was, Miss Gish. And he said, you thwarted a possible school bus explosion. And I'm like, wow. I said, Mom, up in heaven, I'm nosy, I'm observant, I have a loud voice, and I'm in charge. That's my story.
Okay, excellent. That was super. Okay, so let's see. In Woodland Hills, California, I lived there for about 16, 18 years during that time. Did you look anything like me? I never drove a van, but I know the schools really well, so all around that area. So, okay. El Camino and all. Canoga Park. Yep, Taft. Yep, Taft is right up the street on Ventura. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cool enough. Okay, moving on. We're going to take a quick break. We'll take about 10 minutes to get up, stretch, visit Liz at the bar, please, as often as you can in 10 minutes. Chuck them down, and we'll start up again with the wild cards. All right. We're ready to start again. Everybody return to your previously claimed seats, or change them if you feel like it. Okay, so first half of the program is done. Now we start the second half, and we start out with some wild cards. We did have a couple of people that put their name in the hat. I don't know who these people are. I don't know what they're going to say. So I did draw them. Right here, okay. So, first one, who's going to tell us a tale? Sturgis Robinson. Sturgis Robinson. Okay, you ready?
Sure you want me to do
I have no idea what you're going to say. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then launch.
I'm going to tell the story first. Because I'm a control freak. But so India, 1975. My buddy Patrick and I, after several seasons of trying to kill ourselves in the Rockies and the Cascades as mountaineers, decided we have a better chance of killing ourselves if we went to the Himalayas. So off we went. And after, 4 or 5 attempts to climb various mountains in the Himalayas, which we totally failed at, we both fell in love with the same girl. And the girl says, obviously really bored with us. I'm going to go down south to India and spend 2 weeks in an ashram studying Buddhism. And Patrick and I, both being in love with this woman, said, we'll go too. So we went, and the whole sort of meditation thing, we went to a town in India called Bodh Gaya, which is famous as the place of the Bodhi tree, which is the tree under which 3,000 years ago the Buddha attained enlightenment. And an ancestral tree of that original tree is still there. And of course, there's temples all over the place, and pilgrims from all over the world come to be here, to be in the place where Buddha attained enlightenment. And there's a giant central temple called the Mahabodhi Temple, which is four-sided, 300 feet tall, intricately carved with thousands of representations of various postures of the Buddha. Fat Buddha, smiling Buddha, sexually excited Buddha, all kinds of Buddhas. They're all carved into the wall, very intricate, amazing. So after our first 2-week session of meditation, and surviving that was another story, Patrick and I, we had a day off between the second session because we weren't letting this girl go. And keep in mind that in meditation sessions, you meditate all day, the genders are segregated, and there's no talking. So the flirtation thing was kind of a failure. But in any case, so Pat and I decided we're going to walk around Bodh Gaya and look at these famous temples and stuff. And while we're admiring the Mahabodhi temple, a limousine pulls up, and our teacher, Goenka-ji, who's the head of this whole Buddhist thing, very important figure in Buddhism, gets out of the limo with a bunch of other various sort of religiously looking dignitaries, Hindus and whatnot, all dressed up. And they walk over to the base of the Mahabodhi temple, and one guy takes out this enormous key, and he sticks it in this gate, and he opens up the gate, and they disappear into the bowels of the Mahabodhi temple. And then the door slams. And Pat and I are going, wow, that's cool. There's a secret entrance to the temple. And we walk up and we look, and it's not locked. See, what could go wrong? So Pat and I, we walk up, and it's like from a Harry Potter movie. It's all dank and sort of licheny and dark. And this temple was built hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. It's super old and really weird and dark. And we walk up and up and up and up, and suddenly we come out into this, the whole upper level of the Mahabodhi temple is a giant, maybe 3-story, I don't know what you'd call it, atrium? I don't know. And at the one end of it is a giant golden statue of the Buddha, all adorned in jewels and flowers. And all along the other walls are these giant glass cases full of human skulls encrusted with jewels and embroidered meditation cushions and all kinds of weird stuff. And so all the dignitaries are over there in front of the Buddha temple having the classic Indian conversation, which is where everyone's talking at once. And Pat and I think, maybe we shouldn't be here, but we'll just stay back here, look at the skulls. And so while Pat and I are moving over here looking at the skulls and stuff, the dignitaries are moving the other way. And so suddenly Pat and I are in front of the giant Buddha, and we hear a clang, and they've locked us in. So Pat and I think, okay, so we're trapped in the most holy Buddhist temple known to man. What could go wrong? And we go, we're locked. They've locked the gate. There's a gate at the top, too. So we're locked in. And we think, okay, we've learned important skills in meditation training. We'll just meditate until they come let us out. So that lasts about 10 minutes. And then we think, okay, this is not going to work out well for us because maybe we pissed them off so much they want us to die. Right? So we don't know, and no one's come to get us, right? And we're looking around, and we notice that way up, there's a little square window. No glass, no bars. Now, Pat and I we're both rock climbers. In those days, we were pretty good. But the can't is like this. So we're not going to be able to do that. And there's no Buddhas to hang on to or anything. But we think if we take these giant glass cases with all the skulls in it and slide it over under the window, climb up on the glass cases and boost each other up, we can at least look out the window. So we do. We do all that thing. Skulls are flying all over the place. And we climb up on top of the thing, and I give Pat a boost, and he grabs it and pulls himself through the little square window, and it's just his butt and his two legs are sticking out. And then he comes back and goes, we can do this, we can do this. And I go, okay, so I climb up on the glass case, and then Pat gets out there, and he reaches down, he grabs me, and he pulls me up, and we're both on the outside of the temple now. We're 300 feet up. There's lots of Buddhas to hang on to. But in rock climbing parlance, those are called bomber holds. And we're hanging on, and below us is all this temple stuff and lotus ponds and hundreds of Tibetan nomad pilgrims, heavily armed with, the kukri knives that they're famous for. And fortunately, they're doing this prostrating thing, so they're not looking up. Because Pat and I are up there, and we think, okay, we can do this. We're climbers. So we climb down, we climb down, and we think, oh, maybe if we traverse around to another side, maybe there are not quite so many savage Tibetan nomads there. So oh, no, there's still Tibetan nomads. We finally go all the way around. We're back to where we started with. We just got to go down. So we go down, we land, we get off the thing. When we hit the ground, there's a Tibetan nomad right there, and he looks up, and here's two, idiot Americans coming out of nowhere. And he goes, nah, I didn't see this. And so Pat and I, we run back to our hotel, and we climb under our bed and hide, because we think that people are going to come for us. What's the word? Sacrilege? I mean, we've just messed up the holiest place in Buddhism, and they're peaceful people. On the other hand, the Tibetans were So the next day, it's time for round 2 of meditation. So Pat and I dutifully go to the Burmese Vihar, and we sit on our little cushions and wait for the arrival of Goenkaji, the teacher. And Goenkaji comes in with his wife 4 steps behind him, and he sits down on his little dais. And it happens to be December 25th. And Goenkaji looks out at the crowd, and he sees us. He doesn't make any response. His eyes don't go wide. He sees us. He doesn't. But then he says, and he usually speaks to us for about 5 minutes before we meditate for the next 8 hours. And he says, okay, today is December 25th. It's the birthday of the Christian teacher and prophet, Jesus. So you should all try and be like Jesus. And Pat and I look at each other, and we say, and we have risen from the dead.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I don't have a 6 degrees of separation to Tibet or India, so okay. Wild card number 2, Lee Reeves. My thinks she doth protest too much.
No, I can't even remember the story now. So he just told me, he drew him ahead and he said I didn't get it. So I had put the story out of my head, and now I've got it. It's kind of like taken off guard. So this story, you really threw me. This story takes place on a Thanksgiving day. I'm 12 years old. And we had just moved to Michigan from Ohio. And we were taking the family, the 6 of us, 6 kids, all the way back to Ohio. Those trips, we did many of them, and if you've ever traveled with a large family, you know how much fun they are not. The invisible line that our brothers and sisters had on the seat, and anytime someone goes over it, you start screaming at your parents. And anyway, it was not much fun, but I was really looking forward to this Thanksgiving. We were driving all the way to Steubenville, Ohio. And I was looking forward to it because we were going to my cousin's house that I really wanted to get to know better. Like I said, I was 12, and they had 3 boys, handsome, brawny, charming sons, Donnie, Tommy, and Frank. And I was always shy around them, but I was kind of really wanting to get to know them. So looking really forward to it. We get there, and there's a huge crowd there. Always Irish, Italian family, a lot of talking, laughing, and, talking over each other like the Indians. And it was just really great to be in that environment. And the other reason I was excited is for the first time, I didn't have to sit at the kids' table. So it was a big deal. Remember back when there were so many kids that you had a whole kids' table? And so there were still a lot of kids there, but I got to sit there with Donnie, Tommy, and Frank. And so I was very shy, of course. I was the shyest one in the family of 6 at that time. And I didn't talk much because, I'm only 12 and they're so cool. But there was this lull in the afternoon between when we were about to get pie, I think, and there was a quiet moment. I decided to tell them, I'm very flexible. I can twist my body into almost any shape you can imagine. And, so then Tommy, Donnie, and Frank think this is really great, and they're egging me on. And, oh, yeah, sure you can, Mary Lee, they called me that back then. Sure you can. And so, no, watch me. I can put both legs behind my head, no problem at all. So I get down, and there's like 20 people at the table. I sit down, and their eyes are all fixed on me. And first leg goes behind, no problem whatsoever. Trying to get that second leg back, it's just, I'm kind of inching it behind my neck. I just get it there, and I fart. And it is loud. I'm turning red now. I was so humiliated. And of course, that's what they teach you in Michigan, and just all kinds of things. I slink back to the table and try to remain invisible for the rest of the day. And so many years later, it's never been forgotten. But I did become friends with Tommy, Donnie, and Frank.
I think I'm in trouble. I'll let you know next time. Okay. So that's it for the wild cards. We're going to jump back into the regular program. We have 2 more stories. And the next story is Pat Kelley. Sounds like you have a cheering session.
I do.
Yeah, all right.
Got my peeps.
You got your peeps here? Cool. There we go.
I'm gonna
That's
take
better.
that mic off.
That's right, yeah. Okay, so anyways, born and raised in Queens, New York. Her life there, Pat's life there, was rich with the melting pot cultures in the area. Because of it, Pat became a sociologist with a career in teaching, research, and administration. Today, Pat spends time cultivating friendships and curating memories, and storytelling helps her in those. Pat's story revolves around her mother-in-law's best Christmas gift.
Thank you. Actually, the full title of my story is Bill's Nice Hair and My Mother-in-Law's Best Christmas Gift. My husband, Bill, had nice hair. And what I mean by that, it was thick, it was nice texture, it was medium length. You could grab onto it. It was healthy hair, shiny, beautiful hair. It was light brown with kind of honey-colored highlights. Now, Bill and I knew each other as co-workers and friends for several years. And then, eventually and inevitably, our relationship developed and we became a couple. In one of our first romantic encounters, I got to touch it for the very first time. Now, you know I'm talking about his hair. Okay. Just to get that table over there, they're going somewhere else. So anyway, I reached up, I touched his hair, stroked it, and I said, "Nice hair." And he laughed. No one had ever said that to him before. Now, Bill, he didn't have to use any product on his hair. It was just naturally wonderful. He didn't have to use it. But secondly, he would never have done so because he was very frugal. Spending money on hair products never would cross his mind. He bought that big giant jug of shampoo from Costco, the Kirkland brand, and that's what he did for his hair. He had been in the Marine Corps for 20 years and was quite accustomed to getting regular haircuts. Now then, he has high and tight Marine haircut, but even when it was longer, he was in the regular habit of getting a haircut. So we moved here 35 years ago, and he found a barber, John Alvera. And John's shop was right on Cortez. We could walk to it now. However, John retired last year, so you can't go there anymore. But John had been a barber for 55 years when he retired. Bill liked him because he told funny stories, but the main reason why Bill liked him was that John had the least expensive haircut in town. This was the main attraction. So we both worked at Prescott College, and one day Bill came home and he said one of our co-workers and friends at Prescott College, Steve Walters, gave Bill, Sturgis knows all about this, gave Bill a coupon for a free haircut at a new barber shop in town. Well, for Bill, free was better than cheap. So he said, "I'm going to go to this new place for the haircut." So he came home the next day after being to this barbershop. And you know this saying, you get what you pay for. Well, Bill paid nothing, and he got the worst haircut I had ever seen. It was like the clipper or whatever they used slipped, and it was all uneven, all kinds of cowlicks sticking all over. You know the Peanuts cartoon, Charles Schulz? Do you know the character called Pigpen? Well, Pigpen's Bill was like a human Pigpen. So he came in the house with this bad haircut, and I kind of looked at him and I said, "Oh, Bill," I said, I would never say anything bad about the way you look. I love the way you look. But that haircut is very bad, and it really doesn't look good. And he kind of set his jaw and said, "I like it." So I kind of consoled myself. I said, "Well, his hair grows quickly," which it did, so it will grow out. And in the meantime, I won't look at him. I'll avert my eyes. So a few weeks went by and the hair did grow. Okay, that's good. And it was about this time of year, actually, and we were starting to get ready for our trip to visit his family for Christmas in Kansas. So we packed stuff, we got the Christmas presents and all this business. And Bill said, "I'm going to go get my haircut," because he wanted to have a nice haircut for Christmas. And I said, "Oh, are you going to John?" He said, "No, I'm going to the new place." So I went to Steve, our friend, and I said, Steve, I don't understand this because Bill is going back to that new barbershop, and this time, no free haircut. He had to pay good money. And he'd probably pay 3 times at least what John Alvarez charged. So Steve said, well, you know, that barbershop is owned and operated by women, and all the barbers are women. Then I got it. Bill loved women. He had gone into the Marine Corps when he was 17. And his work, he was a pilot in the Marine Corps. His workplace was air stations or airfields. His workmates were other pilots. There were no female pilots in the Marine Corps till 1995. So he was surrounded by men. This was a male environment. When he retired in 1977, after 20 years, he started to be in other jobs. And there were women. Well, they were like new, wow, this is kind of cool. They were different from men, yes. And he liked them. And they liked him a lot. He was kind, he was funny, he was gentle, he was respectful. So he had a lot of women friends. So this was the key to why he was going to the new place. So I envisioned, I never saw this place, but I envisioned, here's Bill, and he's got all these women pampering him and touching his hair, and he's saying, they're saying nice hair, and he's laughing. And probably, in my mind, they had champagne, So he comes home from the pleasure palace, as I was terming it. And the second haircut was just as bad, if not worse, than the first one. So now this was a problem because he had paid money for this one, and he still liked it. So I thought, well, I'll have to deal with this eventually, but we're going to Kansas. It's cold in Kansas, so maybe he'll wear a hat most of the time. So I won't have to look at it. So we go to Kansas, and we got there Christmas Eve. The rest of the relatives hadn't been there yet. And his mom, Gladys, my mother-in-law, was a very sweet, quintessential Midwestern lady. She had grown up on a farm. She had 4 children, and her life revolved around her home, her church, and her family. I had talked to her many, many hours over the kitchen table. Never, ever did Gladys say anything negative about her family. She loved them truly unconditionally. She took pride in their accomplishments. She was a lovely person. So we got in the house, and here's the house. The living room has the tree, the presents all ready. Little did I know that my best present was just a few minutes away. So we went into the kitchen because Gladys had prepared a little supper for us. And Bill and I sat at the table, and Gladys went by the stove to get the food to put it on the table. And she passed by Bill, and she said, Bill, what happened to your hair? You used to have nice hair. And I was like, yes, Gladys. I was vindicated. Bill's hair was so bad that even his saintly mother said something. Best present ever. So we had a wonderful holiday in Kansas, came back here. A few weeks went by, and Bill said, I'm going to go to get a haircut today. And I said, where are you going? Oh, I'm going to John. So Bill's love of his mom took precedence over his love of women. And we lived happily ever after.
That was a lot of fun. Okay, don't need to talk about bad hair. Okay. As mine disappears slowly but surely. But anyways, okay. Our last storyteller of the evening or afternoon is Leslie Zann. Leslie, come on up. Okay, a little bit about Leslie. Leslie is an accomplished author and public speaker. Her mission is to help others stop settling and live their best life. She's spoken live to thousands across the globe already and many more online. And Leslie's story today is about stepping out of her comfort zone and its own rewards. Leslie.
Thanks, Stephen. So, 2010, my husband of 15 years walked out on me. And about 3 years later, as the holidays were coming around, I decided I was not going to spend the holidays with my friends and family again and relive all the stories and see their sympathetic looks on their faces. I was going to take a trip. And I was going to go be by myself. And this turned into a personal dare. I challenged myself. I had to prove to myself that I could fly to the other side of the world by myself and still have fun. So I decided to go to Melbourne, Australia. Now, not as brave as it seems. They love Americans. They speak English. The exchange was great, and it was summer down under. But still, I was going to Melbourne, Australia, for two reasons. The city of Melbourne and north of Melbourne is a fabulous wine country called the Yarra Valley. So my plan was to go to Melbourne, have 3 days in the city, and have it culminate with a Christmas dinner, and then travel up to the Yarra Valley and drink some great Shiraz. That was the game plan. So I fly to Melbourne, I check into my downtown hotel, and I had 3 terrific days in the city. And because it was Christmas time, everything was lit. There was choral singing, there was festivities, there was theater, there was concerts, and I took advantage of all of it. I really had a marvelous 3 days in Melbourne. And it was Christmas Day, and I had just got back to the hotel from a Christmas concert. And I was all excited to plan Christmas dinner. So I go directly to the concierge, and I said, okay, Christmas dinner, I've been waiting for this. What's the best place in town? I'm thinking medium rare ribeye and a bottle of Shiraz. That's my plan. And he looks at me. No. What do you mean no? He said, everything's closed tonight. It's Christmas. What do you mean everything's closed tonight? It's Christmas. He says, I'm sorry, in Melbourne, we closed down for Christmas. I said, there's nothing open? I'm not eating here. And then I had to backtrack. No offense, but the restaurant was pretty bad. I said, I'm not eating here. It's Christmas. Do I have any options? He thinks for a moment. He says, there's one place open. What is it? Chinatown. I said, great. I love Chinese food. I said, here's the plan. How far is Chinatown from our hotel? He said, 20 minutes. I said, okay, I want you to book me into your favorite restaurant for 7 o'clock, have a cab here at 20 to 7, and I'll be down, and that'll be my Christmas dinner. That's our plan. He says, okay. I go up to my room, I take a little nap, I get ready. I'm thinking, okay, Christmas dinner on my own. Big girl, I can do this. So I come down, I hop in the cab, and we take off for Chinatown. Now I know we're getting near Chinatown because all the signs start changing into Chinese. We pull up to this pretty nondescript building, but I remember noticing there was about 30 stairs up to the front door. So I pay the cab. I go up to the door, I open it up, and there's this dark little lobby with a woman, hostess. Now, I can't see the dining room, but I can hear it. It is so loud. I'm thinking, right on, like the place is packed, it's gonna be good. So I turn to the hostess and I say, Merry Christmas. And she smiles at me, and it became very clear that she does not speak English. So we start speaking in hand signals, and she says, 2, and I look, no, 1. She says, okay. Picks up the menu, and we go around the corner, and here's this dining room. There had to have been 100 people in here. The place is packed. Everybody's talking and laughing and eating, and it's just so loud. It was sensory overload. And the hostess is walking me right through the middle of the dining room to my table. And it didn't take me long to realize I am the only Caucasian in the room. So I felt like I had this neon light flashing, gringo, 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 right? And we're maneuvering through the tables. We finally get to my table. She sits down, she hands me my menu, she says something in Chinese, and as she walked away, I thought, well, she could have just said, Merry Christmas, or enjoy your dinner, or what a shame you're all by yourself on Christmas. Okay, but that's me getting in my head now, right? So I just said, okay, she just wished me Merry Christmas and have a good dinner. So before I know it, my server shows up, and like the hostess, he does not speak English. Yet he does know, thank goodness, the names of the food. So I had looked at the menu, and it was a typical holiday limited menu. 3 things on it that I assumed, if I could read Chinese, meant some kind of appetizer, an entree, and a dessert. So I point to the top line, and he says, soup. I said, soup. Good, okay, I'll take soup. I point to the second line, dreaming of ribeye, and he says, pigeon. And I said, pigeon? And he says, pigeon. And I say, pigeon? And he started giggling, pigeon. And I look around, and there's 100 people loving their meal. Okay, pigeon. By then, I didn't even care about the dessert. By now, I'm going, wine, wine, and I point to the table over here, wine, and he says, yes, wine. So he goes away, he comes back, and he was really very thoughtful. He not only brought me a glass of wine, he brought the bottle to show me what I was drinking, which I thought was very cool. And he had chosen a Pinot Noir, which I imagine would go very well with pigeon. So I'm drinking my Pinot Noir, and here comes the soup. And of course, he can't tell me what kind of soup it is. So I take my spoon, I dig in. The best hot and sour soup I've ever had to this day. So I'm enjoying my soup, I'm drinking my Pinot, and I'm starting to smile at some of the people at the tables around me. We can't say anything, but I'm just smiling. I'm into this, I can do this. I'm one of you, I'm here, right? Merry Christmas. So my server comes, he removes the soup bowl, and he comes back with the entree on a plate with a lid. Quite fancy. And he sets it on the table with a flourish. Whew, voila. Pigeon. And there's my pigeon surrounded with rice. And I look up at him, I look down at my pigeon, I look up at him, I don't know what to say, so I just say, okay. And he gives me a little bow and he walks away. Now, what I probably wouldn't have said in English, and I certainly did not know how to say in Chinese, was, the head's still on the bird, and it is staring at me. And I cannot eat this bird with this little head's eyes staring at me. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do? So again, I look to my new friends for some sort of mentorship or example. Are they eating the head? Is it on their plate? Like, I don't want to make a faux pas. Like what if the head's the best part? Or what if you save it for dessert? Or what if you put it in your wine? Like, I don't know what you do with the head, but I know I don't want to eat the head. So I know intellectually that nobody is looking at me, but I feel like they are all now staring at me to see what I'm going to do with the pigeon head. So I make a managerial decision. I pick up my fork and knife, and in one fatal swoop, I cut the head off. That's only step one. Now I have to get it off the plate. And I think, well, again, are they going to be insulted? Like, what do I do with this? I get this brilliant idea. My two tops adjacent to the wall. So I'm very sly and sophisticated here. I turn my plate 90 degrees. I'm acting very calm, and I have my fork, and I flick the head off the plate onto the table, and then I quickly scoop it under the rim of the plate. Out of sight, out of mind. Now I can tear into my pigeon. But again, now how do I tear into my pigeon? I start looking around. Is she using a fork and knife? Is he eating it with his hands? How does one eat said pigeon? So I decided to just take a bite to make sure it was good. Oh, it's so good. Like, it was really so good. And I know what you're thinking. Did it taste like chicken? No, it tasted like pigeon. And I ate half of it with my knife and fork. I ate the other half with my hands. I'm sucking the bones. Like, I could have whiffed down two of those. It was so good. By the time he pours me another glass of wine, he brings dessert. Dessert wasn't so terrific, and I still don't know what it was. I know, bummer. It was not chocolate cake. It was not a cookie. It was some orange, gelatinous, custardy type of something. So I forwent the dessert and just had my wine. But I'm happy. I'm full. I'm happy. I'm into it. I just had my first Christmas dinner by myself, a very exotic Christmas dinner by normal standards, and I'm enjoying myself. The waiter comes to clean up, and he goes to put his hand on the plate. And I'm just drinking my wine and smiling. And he lifts the plate to take it away, and what's there on the table? The little head. And he looks at the head, and he looks at me, and he looks at the head, and I look at him, and he puts this look on his face like he's gonna give me what up, and then he bursts out laughing, totally teasing me, like just cracking up. I can still see his little shoulders, right? And he takes his napkin, picks up the head, puts it on the plate, looks at me, laughs out loud again. He walks away, and again, I see him giggling as he walks up the... He thought it was so funny. So I finish my wine, I pay the bill, I get up. Now when I'm walking through the dining room, instead of gringo, gringo, I'm like, big girl, I ate my pigeon, I ate my pigeon, I ate my pigeon, I ate my pigeon. And I go down the stairs, and I hop in the cab, and I go back to my hotel, and I thought that was the most memorable holiday dinner ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. All right, just a shameless plug on Leslie's behalf. In January, on January 20th, she'll be hosting a seminar here in the Crystal, and the title of the seminar will be From New Year to Best Year. So that's information's available. Is it on the website? No, it wouldn't be on. It will be on the website soon enough. Okay. Okay. So there you go. Okay, that's our program for today. Thank you. Okay, now, but before we go, before everybody gets up and disappears, there's a couple of things I want to just talk about. Now that the stories are done, all of the storytellers are going to come up, and we're going to have a dance-off. So, okay, so we'll just crank up the music and off we go. So, and you guys get to vote. No, I'm kidding. There's not going to be a dance-off. That's a different show. So anyways, I just want to go on behalf of the Elks, the Performing Arts Center, some of the upcoming events here. I just want to plug some of those on their behalf. And there's a bunch of stuff in December that is well worth attending if you can. On December 1st, coming up the end of this week, there is a benefit for Northland Cares, a local group that provides medical care for people with HIV positive and other illnesses, and they are a wonderful group and well worth joining. Information on all of these events is on our website, prescottelkstheater.org. So you can just go there, click on the link in the upper right-hand corner that says Performing Arts Center, and scroll down. You'll see all the information that you want. After that, on 12/3, Sundays at the Sundance. And if you've never heard of this, we've been doing this here for about 2 years now, and it is a show that is strictly for Prescott musicians and groups that are kind of want to get into the big time, and they play some of the bars, but they want to go to some place where people are actually listening to them as opposed to watching TV or clinking bars or smoking or whatever. So that's here. It is a totally free concert. Okay. So we host the entire thing. When I was the program manager here, we started this, and it's a wonderful, wonderful program. So if you're interested in, usually goes to the folky side of the music, but sometimes it's a little different. I don't know who these people are, but this weekend, the Wildflowers, Gary Ukra, UKRA, and Kalina Martin will be the featured artists that will be playing here. While it is a free concert, they do accept donations to, give to the artists that will be playing here, because nobody gets paid to do it. And reservations are recommended. It always sells out. Always, 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 always. There's a room for about 100 seats. And it always sells out. So you don't have to put anything. All you do is go to the website, click on it, make your reservation for seats. It'll guarantee you a chair in the place. So it's really worthwhile. After that, on the 7th, Una Voce. And Una Voce is the Prescott Women's Choir, conducted by Arlene Hardy, and our relationship with Arlene began also a number of years ago, and she uses the facility as her practice for the choir, and they are an astounding vocal women's choir, and well worth the opportunity to listen to them sing holiday music. So it'd be beautiful. After that is, of course, Akronite. Akronite is coming up. Quick. And our featured artist up here in the main room will be Big Daddy and the Dynamites. And so they'll be up here from roughly 6 o'clock on to close. So, and down on the second floor, we have Mary Heller and the Bee's Knees with dance and music. After that, on the 9th, Gypsy Soul is here. And if you've never had the opportunity to see or hear Gypsy Soul, they're a husband and wife duo. And I've had the opportunity to see them, 3 or 4 times, I think. And I can't say enough about Solette's vocal range and voice. And certainly Roman's guitar playing is second to none. And they'll be doing a holiday show here as well. And if you're going to pick one, that's the one I'd pick. So I've seen them all, but after that, one of the last things, but not certainly, McDougal Street West will be having their Christmas show here. And if you don't know who McDougal Street West is, they are locals. That's one of the things about this place, is that we try to focus on local talent here, as opposed to the theater where you get a lot of tribute bands and whatnot. While Peter, Paul, and Mary is McDougal Street West is a tribute band for Peter, Paul, and Mary. They are local and they fit our bills, so they're well worth seeing. They're a lot of fun, and they're good people. After that, something's totally different. There's a Red Cross blood drive on the 12th, okay? And we host them every other month, or every 3 months at least. It just depends on the calendar, but we have at least 6 a year. And the next one is, Liz is back there shaking her head, but I'm right, you're wrong. So the next one is the 12th. I made my appointment yesterday to let them make me lighter. So, if that's something you want to do, there's always a need for blood, and, there's an event there. After that, one thing I'd like to mention is that our parent, AZ Wordsmith, has a program here that happens on the second Tuesday of every month. It's an open mic prose night. So, and this month's featured author is Vicki Paris Goodman. And what's the book? Do you remember? Loving Sam. Okay. She'll be reading a passage from Sam with Love. Okay, something about Sam and love and some other things. So she'll be reading a passage from that, and then there will be anybody else who is into writing, fiction, nonfiction, will be able to get up and read a piece of their work for a few moments, 5 to 10 minutes. 10 minutes max, okay? So that's a lot of fun, and we host that as well. So there is a bunch more going on, but I'm not going to go through that. I mean, we can go into next year, but, we won't because I don't want to. So I'm just going to close out the show, and what? It's coming. It's my thing. I'm telling you, who runs the show? Okay, anyways, I'll do it now. Okay, there is the AZ Wordsmith, our parent, we have other programs besides this. One of them is a brand new one, just starting up with, in the back there, the guy with his hand by his face, John Morris. And he actually was one of our storytellers at our first presentation. And I don't know how to explain what it is, but it's called Stories from the Inside. And Janet, can you tell them a little bit?
What John is going to do is set up a program in our local jail for kind of a literary group where the inmates will write to a prompt, and then I'm hoping after we get it rolling for a while, and they'll be able to read what they wrote in the group, and I'm hoping that eventually we can put together an anthology for that.
Okay. So, anyways. Yeah, that's a new program starting up, so hopefully, it'll be popular and beneficial. I don't know. People want to be involved. That's good. Okay. So, anyways, couple of thank yous. Thank you all for coming. Breaking up the turkey and the shopping and everything else, and taking a little time out of your day to come here and do something a little different. We hope you enjoyed the program. Thank you. Our next Stories That Matter event is scheduled for January 28th. So if you are interested in participating, please speak to myself or Janet, Lee, Sue, even Liz back there. She can help out too. And we'll be glad to kind of inform you, take your information, and bring you around. If it's not something that you're interested in doing up here, perhaps you'll enjoy hearing some more stories and visit us again. I'd like to thank Liz and the Performing Arts Center for the space, for allowing us to be here. It's very kind of them, and we appreciate their generosity. And I'd like to thank our storytellers. really some good stories. I really enjoyed listening. I always enjoy listening to them, but it's a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoyed them as well. And will tell your friends and bring people by and come and see us again sometime soon. So thanks again for coming, and you guys have a safe, peaceful, and prosperous holiday and New Year. Thank you very much.